This is Generation Stadia, giving you that daily dose of everything and anything Stadia related. And today's topic will be all about the data cap problem. So I want to make it very clear off the get-go that I'm lucky enough to live in a place where I don't have to worry about a data cap. Truth is that the majority of the world doesn't have to worry about data caps because this really only affects the United States the most. Now, don't mistake that for saying that there aren't other countries that face a similar issue. Living in Canada, I know there's certain areas that still do have data caps. But for this specific video, I just want to focus in on the United States, simply because they're the biggest video game market in terms of revenue made in the world. And now that that's out of the way, it's about time we start talking the numbers. So according to every article I read, they all refer to PC gamers' estimation on how much data Stadia will use. That being the case, we're going to be using those numbers as well, but do remember they're just an estimation and we won't really know until we have Stadia in our hands come November. So according to PC gamers, streaming Stadia in 4K 60 FPS will be using 1 terabyte of data in 65 hours of usage. And for comparison's sake, playing Stadia at 1080p 60 FPS averages out 1 terabyte in 113 hours. Now, after hearing those numbers, I know there's two groups of people. Group 1 is completely shocked and fearing those numbers being so low. Group 2 is wondering how Group 1 has so much free time on their hands. Now, to be very fair to Group 1, Group 2 needs to remember that not all 1 terabyte of data that you have as a data cap is going to be used purely on gaming. Remember that if you're living with anyone else, be it family, roommate, or a spouse, you're all going to be using the same internet, which all goes towards that data cap. And it doesn't stop there, because if you're gaming on a 4K display, chances are other people in that household are also using that 4K display for YouTube and Netflix. Suddenly, those 65 hours of game time are looking like a lot less, but ultimately, is this really that big of a problem for Google Stadia? Well, yes it is, and no it's not. Let's break it down. Now, before I begin, let me make it very clear, I'm completely against data caps. I think they're a horrible idea, and I hope that one day we won't see any data caps across Canada and America and wherever else they exist. Now to begin, let us start with the heavy user, and by heavy user, I mean you play for more than a couple of hours every single day of the month. Now, if you find yourself in a position like that and you happen to have a data cap, Google Stadia is something I cannot safely recommend for you to try out at all. In fact, I think it would be very counterintuitive. You definitely won't be getting the amount of gameplay time in that you would want, and going over it would definitely be a costly experience. Now, with that out of the way, let's focus on the average user, because frankly speaking, I think there's a case to be made here. So when looking at average amount of data used per household each month, you're talking about 200 to 300 gigabytes a month. So if you ask me, these numbers seem pretty low. In fact, I was pretty surprised myself, so I double checked it through multiple reports, but it turns out to be true. Apparently the average household only uses 200 gigabytes a month. Even knowing that, let's play it safe and let's say the average US household uses 400 gigabytes a month. Now, if you're gaming on Stadia, that leaves you with 600 gigabytes to spend on 4K 60 FPS gaming every single month, but how much time really is that? Now, to figure this out, let's use the same math PC Gamer did to figure out the number for their article. At 15 gigabytes an hour for 4K 60 FPS Stadia streaming, you're looking at around 40 hours of game time each month. It is a lot less than the 65 hours you're promised with the full terabyte dedicated to streaming, but it's really not that bad. In fact, let's look into it just a little bit further. Let's see how much time your average gamer spends per week playing games. Well, according to these statistics taken in 2019, your average gamer in the United States plays for about 8 hours every single week. Or in other terms, about 32 hours a month. And if you have a 1 terabyte data cap, that leaves you with 120 gigabytes free to use for other means. All of a sudden, it doesn't seem too ridiculous that Google's launching Google Stadia now, does it? I'm 100% sure that Google's done the math and knows very well just how much potential there is for a consumer base within the United States and other countries as well. It's why I've always found it kind of funny when people think that Google Stadia will fail because it doesn't have a market. Google knows very well who their market is and what the potential reach of it is. Now, even with all of this said, I'm not going to sit here and pretend like data caps are a non-issue. They absolutely are. Personally speaking, I can blow through a terabyte of data a month easily, no problem at all. In fact, I've done it plenty of times, but I'm lucky enough not having to worry about data caps, but the truth is that not everyone is. I have zero doubt in my mind that some of you listening to this video definitely game for more than 8 hours a week. Even among my friends who play games, there's quite a few of them that definitely game more than 10 hours a week. And believe me when I say I absolutely get your concern, and I absolutely agree that it just plain sucks. But my reason for making this video was due to reading the comments section of said article on PC Gamer, as well as the discussion going on in many game forums and different subreddits. Time and time again, you would see the same repeating message of doom and gloom on Stadia because data caps in the United States are unbearable. But I decided to make this video to really show you that not all of it is black and white. Just because you have a data cap doesn't mean that it's going to affect you using Stadia at 4K resolution. I also need to point out that all of the math here has been done using 4K resolution, which is something most of us aren't going to be gaming at. And that makes all of this even more of a non-issue when you take it into account. But what's Google's response to this problem? Because it is an issue for some users who do have interest in Google Stadia. Now, I'm gonna be very honest with you, when I first heard the response to this, I was actually pretty offended. I thought it was a completely ridiculous statement. Phil Harrison, VP of Google Stadia, stated that ISPs are smart and they understand that they're in the business of keeping customers happy and keeping customers with them for a long time. Now, if you know anything about the United States ISPs, you know how absolute garbage they are when it comes to customer satisfaction. Based on everything I've read online about ISPs in the United States, they sound like the absolute worst of the worst. With that said, Phil Harrison is somewhat correct in saying that ISPs understand that the majority of their consumer base doesn't necessarily have to be happy, but unbothered. Now, by saying that, I mean that as long as the majority of consumers are unaffected by data caps, there's no reason for them to be bothered to increase them at all. Who's gonna stop them? The 2% that actually use a terabyte of data, the power users, or the enthusiast crowd like me and you? Well, I'm sad to say it, but no, in the grand scheme of things, we don't matter to them, and they can effectively keep charging us for going over that limit. We're not big enough of a crowd to cause an uproar to actually have things change, but if you get the casual audience involved, it's a much different story. So much so that the reason you probably have 1 terabyte of data cap and not 300 anymore just like a few years ago is because of the explosive usage of Netflix. Now that more companies are getting involved in high bandwidth usage services, expect it to keep going up too. Now let's say the worst case scenario and these ISPs somehow manage to actually withhold everyone's anger and keep them tied down to 1 terabyte. Well, if that's their stance, they better get ready for the competition coming because it's coming fast with 5G networking, and in the further future, SpaceX and Amazon are definitely getting involved. But let's leave that for another topic for another day, as it really deserves to be its own video. Now, if you enjoyed this video or found it helpful at all, be sure to hit that like button as it really does help the channel out, and if you want more videos like this, be sure to subscribe and hit that notification bell as well. Now for this end of video message, I really just want to say that I hope the discussion was interesting today, as I know some of you wanted me to cover data caps as a topic. Other than that, I want to use this time to fill those of you who don't follow me on Twitter or aren't part of the community Discord why I didn't upload yesterday. Well, the truth is that I'm working on something in the background for the Gen S community, but I wanted to dedicate the day to it to try and advance it forward so I can get it ready sooner rather than later. Now, that being said, if you want to find out when I'm going to be missing a day in advance, be sure to follow me on Twitter. That's probably the best way to do so. I'm always sure to post updates on Twitter whenever there's a new video, or if for some reason I can't post one day. So if you want to keep up with the latest on everything Generation Stadia, be sure to follow me over on Twitter. I'll put the link in the pinned comment of this video. Other than that, the last thing I want to say is thank you once again for all the support and all the feedback you've given me, and to those of you who heard me say that I won't be uploading yesterday, thank you for your kind words. I really do appreciate it. All of you were okay with me dedicating the day to this project, and more importantly, all of you were very supportive of it. This community is definitely one of a kind, and I'm so glad to be a part of it. Anyways, this has been Generation Stadia, giving you that daily dose of everything and anything Stadia related. We are officially over 1,000 strong and growing by the day. Until next time, I'll catch you in the clouds. Peace.